BloodStream Journeys is produced by BloodStream Media and made possible exclusively by BioMarin.
Hi, I'm Ivan Giron. I'm the creative director at Believe Limited, and I'd like to tell you a story about my journey to this moment. Actually, it's a story about a story, but not just any story about just any story. This story is about a story that led to one small decision, followed by a few more bigger decisions, then a few more even bigger decisions, and on until entire life trajectories were altered for like a half dozen people. And those people went out and spent every working day of their lives trying to improve the lives of thousands of other people they'd never even met, but people who had a very, very specific connection to the original story. This is a story about a story that created a profound ripple effect that continues almost 8 years after the story was first told. And it sounds huge and long and convoluted, but it's really short and really clear. And I think it explains better than I ever could how and why this podcast, BloodStream Journeys, exists and what we believe it can do. Ready? Okay. My producing partner at Believe Limited and BloodStream Media is Patrick James Lynch. 8 years ago, we met on a shoot, and a few months later, we went out for a drink to see if there was something we could work on together. We were both doing well. He was a working actor, I was a working director in New York City, but we weren't fulfilled by the work we were doing. It usually belonged to other people. It usually focused on selling other people stuff they didn't need. It's hard to feel fulfilled. It's hard to remain an artist when the work feels meaningless. So after a whiskey or 3, Patrick said there was one thing that he was excited about. There was one thing that was his. He wanted to make a comedy show about hemophilia, something like The Office, but set in a hemophilia nonprofit. Well, I love The Office. I still do. I directed comedy. It sounded fun. Only one question. Why hemophilia? And then he told me. He told me the story. A few years earlier, Patrick's younger brother Adam had gone off to college. He stopped taking his factor. He suffered a head injury. He fell asleep, and he did not wake up. Adam died as a freshman in college from a subdural hematoma with no factor in his system. And over the years of processing what exactly happened, Patrick had come to believe that the root of all this pain and needless loss was a very simple thing. The bleeding disorders community needed to fundamentally shift how it reached, engaged, and taught young people, especially young men, everything. That story broke my heart. It also inspired me to say yes on the spot to working with Patrick on his idea. We would be our own bosses, we'd be creating something useful, and we'd be ensuring that the story didn't end with Adam's passing. The ripple effect began. Stop the Bleeding, our hilarious, smart, powerfully educational web series, has run for 9 seasons over 7 years to date. We've taught lessons about everything from prophylaxis to gene therapy, from the importance of hemophilia camps to the empowerment of women with bleeding disorders. Families and young people around the country, and even the world, reach out to tell us about the impact it's had on their lives. It's won awards from both the Hemophilia Federation of America and the National Hemophilia Foundation, but it doesn't stop there. The success of that show in empowering young families and community members to thrive in spite of bleeding disorders has led to literally dozens of other community programs and hundreds of other videos, films, live events, workshops, and of course, podcasts. Our company has 8 full-time employees, and we're adding 4 more next year. We spend every day working on new ways to educate and inspire the bleeding disorders community. We've filmed on all 7 continents, working with the World Federation of Hemophilia and Save One Life to bring much-needed aid to bleeding disorders communities in developing nations. Oh, and Patrick met his wife through my wife. Talk about lives altered. This all started with a 5-minute story at a bar because Patrick took a big, courageous leap in opening up to someone he'd known for a day months before. He just told his story, and that's what we're asking you to do. You, the bleeding disorders community. Think about the moments in your life where you've hurt, where you've won or lost, where you've loved or questioned love, where you've had to advocate for yourself or your child or your partner. What did you learn? What do you want others to learn from your journey? Let us know using the link in the show notes or visit bloodstreammedia.com/mystory. My story is all one word. That's bloodstreammedia.com/mystory. We'll help you craft and record your story. We'll share it with the community, and the ripple effect will begin.
The moment of decision. This month, we have 3 stories that all come down to a moment. That single fraction of a second, where you could go right or left, up or down, repeating the mistakes of the past, or ripping open a brand new future for yourself and those you love. I'm your host, Heather Robb. And first up, we'll hear from Ivan Giron.
My name's Ivan Giron. I'm 32 years old. I'll be 33 on Saturday. I've been married with my wife 17 years, and I have 3 children, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And I'm from LA, California, born and raised. So growing up, I was faced with a lot of adversity. I was diagnosed with Hemophilia A at the age of 2. Growing up, I was a very hyperactive child. I loved to climb on things and jump off, and I had so much energy. I loved sports, so I dreamed of becoming an athlete as a kid, and I got to play soccer when I was 7 years old. My dad got me into it, allowed me to get into a team. But as I played, I sprained my right ankle many times, and I would never allow my ankle to heal properly. So I started having too many bleeds into the joint that developed into mild arthritis by the time I was 15. I was very devastated when I was diagnosed with that, because basically the doctor told me you can't really play sports, because if you continue to play sports, you will eventually need to get your ankles fused and there will be no more motion in your ankle. And that really broke me, because I felt that I can do it and I wanted to. It was my passion, that's what I loved. So I became rebellious, and at the same time I was living in a very unstable home. My father was a very violent alcoholic, and because of that, I was making a lot of poor choices in my life. I didn't have the right guidance. I continued to play sports. I sprained my ankle more times. And during high school, I was put in the PE class with the special ed kids. They didn't want me to run. I was a liability for the school, so they tried to keep me as safe as possible. But I didn't care. I kept on doing what I wanted. I got involved with gangs. I was selling drugs. I got shot twice. I actually almost lost my leg once when I got shot. I got hit on the femur and I fell to the floor right away. Paramedics get there about 5 minutes, and I told them right away. I was like, I have hemophilia A. I take factor 8, 3,000 units. You guys probably need to give me a double dose. And the paramedics were like, man, we wish everybody was like this. They tell us right away. But that moment taught me a valuable lesson, though, because I knew that if I would have been unconscious, the paramedics wouldn't have known anything, and I would have probably died. So because of that, I started wearing my medical alert every single day, and I don't go anywhere without it. So my teenage years were very tough, rough. My dad got locked up with 15 years to life sentence. So basically I was on my own with my wife and my daughter at the age of 18, There's only 2 things that I can say that were the greatest things that could have happened to me when I was a teenager. I met my wife at the age of 16, which I know she's an angel that God sent to me. And also I had my daughter at the age of 18 who softened this tough gangster up, right? And I knew that life wasn't about me anymore. It was about them. I decided to get into the medical field. I took a course for the medical assisting to get my foot in the door. At the age of 22, I had an opportunity to work for an ophthalmologist. Her name is Dr. Lydia Matkovich. I decided to go into the interview, and I will always remember this, because she told me, tell me a little bit about yourself. And one thing I knew was that if I wanted this to go right, I needed to be honest. And sometimes, you might not be proud of the things that you're doing or where you stand in life, but if you're honest, you might get the right people or the right help around you, right? So I told her, I was involved in gangs. I have a wife, I have 2 kids already at the time, and I wanted to change my lifestyle. I needed to do something better for my family, and I felt that this was a great opportunity, and I asked her, can you please give me this opportunity? And she was very straightforward about this. And she told me, I'll give you a chance, but any little bullshit from you and you're out of here. I got up and right away gave her a hug and a kiss, and she was like, what? You know, she didn't expect that. She's a tough lady, but she's very straightforward. She's fair, and she has a kind heart. So I decided to start working on myself after that. I took advantage of the opportunity of working for her. I wasn't just her employee. She became my mentor, you know, and later on in the year, she became my godmother as well. So we developed a really good relationship. My personal life, I was open about everything, and she would tell me, you need to go to church. You know, I think that's one of the things that you need to work on, your moral compass. I think you need to become more spiritual, and that'll help you, because I was still very angry at life. You know, even though I had gotten away from the gang life, I still was dealing with personal demons myself. You know, I was smoking a lot, I was drinking a lot, I was a womanizer, you can say. I wasn't the father that my children really needed, because even though I was providing for them, I wasn't there emotionally and like the way I should have been. My wife told me when I was 25, I remember this day, that, you know, she loves me, and that she told me that she will do anything for us, but if she doesn't see me putting in the work to try and work this out, to be a better father and husband, that she doesn't want to provide this kind of lifestyle for our children. And that really hurt me, because according to me, everything I had done was for them, you know. So for me to lose them because I wasn't doing the right thing, it was like a reality check, a slap in the face for me, you know. So I knew that I had to change something. And Dr. Matkovich was trying her best, but she wasn't enough. And I knew that I needed to find a higher power to help me with that. I knew there was some kind of creator growing up, but I just never developed a relationship with him. But my wife's always been a woman of faith. She's always believed in God. So when I told her that I wanted to go to church, she was very happy about it. I remember going to church that Sunday, and I was asking God for help, telling him, you know, if you really exist, help me become a better person, because I can't do this by myself. I need to be a better husband, father, son, you know, for my family. And I remember this feeling of relief, like this heavy thing just got lifted from my back. And once I felt that, I knew that there was a higher power. And from then on, I was hungry for God, and I wanted to know more. And I started looking up the Bible and all the different religions, and why is it that, you know, people believe in so many things, right? But I knew that from then on, I developed a stronger relationship with him, and I knew what my purpose was, you know, and it was to help others. Because the reality is that when I would help others is when I would feel fulfilled inside, when I would feel good inside, you know. And from then on, I made it a commitment to work on myself, to continue to progress in life, in every aspect of my life. I can honestly say that I'm very thankful, you know, to my mother, first of all, because she's the one that showed me love. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have known what love is growing up. Then to my wife, for believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself. She saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. For my daughter, you know, for loving me the way she does, because like I said, if it wasn't for her love, that, you know, as a teenager, I wouldn't have softened up the way I did and opened up to that, you know. And then to Dr. Matkovich for being patient and taking the time to explain things to me and making me see things the right way, you know. And these 4 women in my life have been very special, and I thank God for everything, you know, for putting these people in my life, because sometimes I do feel that I don't deserve it, but it's been nothing but a blessing, and even all the hard times have taught me valuable lessons, so I'm very thankful for those. And I'm very thankful for my hemophilia as well, because if it wasn't for my hemophilia, I wouldn't be as mentally tough as I am. You know, I did want to be an athlete, but I realized that wasn't what I was brought into this world for. And because of hemophilia, I've been able to do other great things, which is travel the world to teach other kids and next generation about what hemophilia is, how to take care of yourself. One of the things I say is surround yourself with people that'll only help you grow, that'll push you to be better. And never quit on yourself. Always believe, and just know that you do have a purpose in life.
Our next story is from Vanessa Flora.
So my name is Vanessa Flora. I live in Indianapolis, Indiana. I grew up in California, but I'm now in Indianapolis. When I was in the 4th grade, I had my tonsils removed. My best friend just had hers out. You'll get ice cream, she said. You'll get to stay home and watch movies all day, she said. So I was actually looking forward to this procedure that would terrify most kids. The day came, and I remember waking up from surgery feeling groggy and sore and nauseous, and then the blood came. I was throwing up the blood clots from the back of my mouth into this little basin. I remember my mother fiercely arguing with the surgeon across the room about this condition that runs in our family. My little helmet-clad brother had hemophilia, and when he was a baby, I had to hold him on pillows, and now we are in and out of doctor's offices in the emergency room every time that he gets hurt. But my mother pressed on. She argued with the surgeon, although he continued to insist that girls cannot have hemophilia. It only runs in boys. But my mother continued to press on because my bleeding was not normal. And in fact, it looked very much like my little brother's bleeding. She needs her brother's medicine, my mother insisted. Finally, help came, and the nurse from my brother's hemophilia treatment center made a special trip to my little small town with some factor for me. And I was able to get it right before I was rushed back to the operating room for another cauterization. Well, the bleeding finally stopped, and I finally got my ice cream. I was promptly worked up at my brother's hemophilia treatment center and was found to only have 20% of normal factor levels. I failed that drug that you sniff up your nose, and I learned that I needed my brother's medicine to stop my bleeding. But the only way that I could get it is if I enrolled in the clinical trial for this brand new generation of drugs that was not made from human blood, because I was a girl, and insurance companies didn't approve of girls getting factor. Later in high school, I joined my brother up at hemophilia camp. There was a girls-only cabin. We were this ragtag group of sisters and daughters of hemophiliacs, but we all had this shared hush secret of heavy menstrual bleeding and excess bruising. We girls broke into this exclusive boys club despite not really being taken serious for us having a bleeding disorder too. We learned what it meant to be proud of your bleeder status and to be a normal kid at camp if you were a boy. We also grieved alongside our male counterparts as many of the counselors and campers got sick with the HIV virus and died. We girls might have not been accepted as real bleeders, but we had family members with hemophilia, and some of us may even go on to pass it on to our sons. Outside of camp, I went on to advocate for bleeders and those with HIV and AIDS in our bleeding disorder community. But deep down, I still wrestled with some uncomfortable questions, such as, could my brother or I get sick like those kids at camp because of blood transfusions or bad factor? Am I the bleeder? Rather than dealing with these thoughts, I just chose to pursue a deeper passion of ballet. I spent almost every day at the dance studio and performed in many of the big ballets like the Nutcracker. I loved waiting in the wings, just ready to burst out and leap as high as my legs would take me. Ballet was my expressive force and my solitude. I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. So, when it was time to grow up, I decided to chase my dream off at college. I auditioned for several dance programs and ended up attending Butler University in Indianapolis, which was one of the top schools in the country. My new friends were from all over the world. Dancing in college was competitive and fierce. We would dance 6 days a week from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m., and then we would have to complete our academic classes before or after that time. Sundays were for rest and for sewing point shoes. I was so busy and so far away from home that my bleeding disorder community just simply started to slip away. And also at that same time, the voice of denial started to seep in. All ballet dancers' joints hurt now and then, right? If you dance too hard, your joints swell, right? Because in the ballet world, if you were seen as weak or injured, you were passed on for the next girl. I don't bleed like my brother. I don't have it. I just have heavy periods. Girls cannot have hemophilia. After college, I moved even further away from home to join a professional dance company. I pushed through the pain. I avoided doctors. It was really easy because that word hemophilia was in my medical chart and I was not able to get health insurance. I even suffered the career-ending injury of a bad fall that, in retrospect, could have been remediated with a little bit of factor and medical care. But I didn't have hemophilia. Girls cannot get it. Sadly, that fall made me stop dancing, and then I went on to become a physical therapist. And despite joining the medical community, I still did not embrace my bleeding disorder. During graduate school, I got married, and soon after, my husband and I were expecting. We were so excited and scared to become parents. But my gut told me that I now needed to face this hemophilia thing head on because I was carrying a boy. My mom called. She was trying to encourage me to get into contact with the local hemophilia treatment center because you might need a little bit of help. You might need some factor. What are you going to do if this little boy has hemophilia? What are you going to do? Well, I dragged my feet, and finally, I decided to pick up the phone. I was really nervous that I would not be accepted back into the community, but Nurse Janet was there to answer. Hello, this is Vanessa. I am a hemophilia carrier with low levels, and I'm carrying a boy. So I need to get my own factor, and my OB wants to know what we need to do to deliver this boy safely. I was a prodigal daughter asking the community to let me back in. Elias's birth was long, but not complicated. And when I took off the Band-Aid from his heel stick, he was still oozing hours later. We learned that he had hemophilia. Nurse Janet was the first one to visit us in our hospital room, and she was there to hold our son and to tell us that everything was going to be okay. A little over 3 years later, I was back in the delivery room carrying another boy, and I had a new sense of ownership, and I was very prepared. I had my cord blood kit, I had my factor, I had my doula, my husband, and Emmett came flying into this world under a full moon right after Halloween. And amidst all of the chaos, my doula grabbed my factor out of my delivery bag, handed it to me. I mixed it up in between contractions, then handed it over to the nurse. And the doctor told the nurse, she doesn't need that medicine. Girls can't have hemophilia. Only boys can get it. But now I had my voice. Doctor, if you don't give the verbal order right now to allow me to have my medicine, we are going to be in a bloody mess here that you may not be able to clean up. Girls can have hemophilia. We are more than just carriers. And in fact, my factor levels right now are about 25%. Normally, they're in the low teens. Normal factor levels start at 50%. It's a thing called lionization. And after you give the order for my medicine, you are going to deliver this little boy safely. You are going to get a good cord blood sample kit. You are going to stitch me up, and then you're going to go over and you're going to read the protocol from my hemophilia treatment center about this thing called hemophilia, and I will be gladly here to answer any questions for you. And if you do not give the order, then I will push it myself because my oldest son also has hemophilia and I know how to push factor in an IV. Emmett's heel stick, just like his brothers, did not stop oozing. He has hemophilia too. As I put that new Band-Aid on his little heel, I smiled knowing that this thing called hemophilia is not a curse, but in fact, it's a gift that I will carry with me for a long time to come. The arrival of my boys taught me that I no longer have to deny and be silent about this condition that I was born with. I am a member of this bleeding disorder community as a bleeder. I need factor too. And now we have a daughter who is a confirmed carrier, and I can teach her to find her own voice when situations arise. In the end, what I have discovered is that hemophilia is something that can make you stronger and help you find your voice to love and care for yourself and your community that just happens to be missing a clotting protein.
And our last story today is from Tyshawn Constantine.
Hi, I'm Tyshawn Constantine. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I'm 27 years old. I got a call from my younger brother, Jonathan. He's 16 years old, loves playing baseball, and I drive him to his game sometimes when my uncle can't take him. And this day, it was Wednesday afternoon around 3 p.m., he calls me frantically and he needs a ride to his baseball game. But I was in Brooklyn and he was in Kew Garden Hills, Queens, and his game was in Staten Island. So I kind of knew that we would get there late already, and if this was something that he wanted to get to in time, he would have probably called me earlier. It brought me back to a time in high school or when I was younger, and I used to always think about how I used to always use like my condition as an excuse in school. I remember I just looked at my report card and I noticed that I had like 66 tardy days my sophomore year. And then I would talk to my classmate, my pair, and he was getting penalized for having 3. I would literally show up late just because I was moving slow, and I would go into the nurse's office and use my condition as an excuse, or I have a stomach ache or something. And then because my parents were so supportive of everything that I said or did, they would always back me up in these situations. I never had to worry about having to prove myself because, I don't know, everyone just knew that I had hemophilia. I kind of just used to get away with it until I got to college. And then things kind of switched up a bit on me where, I was just dropped off at the University of Hartford in Connecticut in 2010, my freshman year. I wasn't with my parents anymore. I had this very challenging math class. I unfortunately had a bleed. I really got hurt during the first week. And I kind of just assumed that, I would be fine. I sent this teacher an email before class, just like, hey, I'm severe hemophiliac, won't be able to be in class today. I might not be able to come the next couple of days. I have an ankle injury. No response. Fast forward a week later, I'm back in class, I'm fine. And I meet the teacher for the first time, and I'm like, hi, I'm Tyshawn. And she's asking for everyone's assignments, and she comes to me like, hey, where's your assignment? And I'm like, hey, I'm Tyshawn. And then she's just like, okay, do you have your assignment? And I'm like, I'm Tyshawn, I'm the one that emailed you. Like, I have hemophilia. It was almost like I was waving this golden ticket, like, hey, I have hemophilia, look. And she's just like, that's nice. Do you have assignment 1 through 5 for me? I didn't have the assignments because I just didn't even think about doing it. I didn't even think about asking any classmates. I didn't even think about going online and looking at the assignment. She posted it online. Eventually, I ended up failing the class, and I still didn't learn my lesson in. I didn't do good in a couple other classes, and I ended up losing my financial aid. I had to transfer. I ended up going into a new school, LIU Brooklyn, and it was kind of the same trend. Very lazy, missing classes. Fast forward a couple years later, I'm finishing school. I was allowed to walk during graduation, but unfortunately there was a class that I didn't take 5 years ago, which was that math class at Hartford that I've been trying to avoid. I had a nice job lined up out of college. I was given the choice during the background check, do you have your college degree? 2 options, yes or no. I'm still 3 credits short of 148. And I needed to take that course again. So surprisingly, I was honest about it, but that was just me thinking that everything will be okay. There was always that get out of jail free card. And unfortunately, they pulled the offer away from me. A week later, they reached back out and I ended up getting the job, and they changed the contract. I had to go to class, get my credit by a certain date. I ended up taking the class on my own, paying for it out of pocket, working at the same time. And till this day, my parents don't know about that. Going back to the phone call with my brother, even though I had the time, I told him that I couldn't take him. He needed to know that this was something he wants to do. He didn't think about the fact that there are 15 other teammates. All their parents aren't taking them to the games. It was almost like he was following the same pattern that I was following. I went to college my freshman year, not even thinking I was in college. It was just 13th grade for me. I did not pick up my factor on time. Most of the time, sometimes I just let it sit there and then wait for something to happen to go get it. I'm still learning how to be more accountable, more responsible when it comes to my health too. And I'm still learning.
This first episode of BloodStream Journeys was written by Ryan Giron, produced by Rob Bradford and Joshua Sterling Bragg. The stories were recorded by Colby Crow, with direction by Allison Stoney and Jessica Richmond. Audio editing and sound design by Colby Crow and Joshua Sterling Bragg. Distribution and engagement by Avra Friedman and Colby Crow. Art and promotion by Katie Wright Mead and Ryan Giron. And BloodStream Journeys is executive produced by Patrick James Lynch and Ryan Giron. A huge thank you to our storytellers who invited us into their journeys: Ivan Giron, Vanessa Flora, and Tyshawn Constantine. If you want to reflect on your journey to this moment right here, and tell your story, visit us at bloodstreammedia.com/mystory. We have a simple form. Write your story in it. Or tell us a little about yourself and what you want to write about, even if you don't yet know how. And click submit. We'll be in touch, and together we'll get your story told. BloodStream Journeys would not be possible without the incredible ongoing support of BioMarin, so we say thank you to BioMarin for their vision and generosity and all the ways they empower the bleeding disorders community to learn, heal, and grow through self-expression. Thank you, BioMarin. Other BloodStream podcasts include the community touchstone, the BloodStream Podcast. BloodStream is an entertaining and informative podcast hosted by Natalie and Patrick Lynch and provides a 360-degree look at the bleeding disorders community through news, interviews, and informed opinionating on the topics that matter most. We also produce the popular Ask the Expert podcast. Ask the Expert was created to help answer some of the biggest questions we receive from community members, both online and in person, as we travel the country producing content and live events for the community. Ask the Expert is hosted by Believe's Director of Innovation and former nonprofit executive, Amy Board, and features the top community experts on new subjects every episode.